Side note, my dad has never had mobility issues, which is why I strongly believe that George's birth had something to do with those changes in my mother. Also, like I brought up earlier, we are a family of exerciseaholics. My mom's mobility issues haven't really been impacted by that. They actually impacted her slow exercises than her fast ones because when she jogs or swims, she does it so fast her issues don't have time to react. She just has some issues walking. She doesn't walk in a perfectly straight line ever. She always just shakes when she walks a bit and doesn't have the muscle strength to carry heavy things like she used to. And her fine motor issues are shot, but not really her gross motor, because that is what she uses to exercise. Fine and gross motor issues are also symptoms of autism. My mother has some fine motor issues as some kid, and then they went away, but they came back after George was born. We actually all have fine motor issues originally, but we all got treated for it, even if they're still not perfect now. However, back to how my mother's autisms began to show more after George was born. Let me start off by saying that if people looked at me on the street and in public by how I act, I don't think that anyone would suspect I had autism. Other than my crazy voice, that is also how I felt about my mother, and she didn't have a crazy voice ever. Then George was born, and she totally changed. Now people can tell she has autism. She now talks a little bit slower than before, and she also flaps her hands a little bit more. Also, her sensory issues, when it comes to what she doesn't like, she is more against it. Like, she never liked mushrooms when some of us did, and now she won't let us buy them along with bananas because she doesn't like the texture of them. And she can get away for this because she is the queen of Robbinsog. Also, when it comes to things she likes because of her sensory issues, she is a lot more desperate from them now than she was before George. The best example of that is that she told me before she had George that the best thing for her sensory issues was cuddling. She used to do it only at night before George came along, but now that is pretty much all she does. In all the free time she gets with either George or my dad. Everyone else's sensory issues stayed the same after my brother George was born, other than my dad being a lot more emotional because my mom was a lot more emotional. Now I am going to move on to talking about something else. Yes, my mom is the queen of Robbinsog, and my dad is the king of Robbinsog. My younger brothers are the princes of Robbins-Og, and most importantly, I am a royal prince. And I am the next in line for the throne because I am the firstborn. I become king when one of my parents dies, or one of them abdicates the throne. I don't expect one of them to abdicate soon. I think I'm going to end up waiting until we are both dead, until I become the monarch of Robbinsog. And since they had me so young, I expect them to be 60 years old by the time I get to be king. When we use the same system for whose line in the throne that the royal family of the United Kingdom uses without gender mattering at all. Since I was the firstborn, my children and grandchildren get to be king instead of my brothers unless my whole part of the family gets killed off. However, my spouse gets to be ruler too along with me when we get to the throne. Until I become king, there is something I do whenever I go into the United States by myself because as a royal, I have duties to do. I do whatever those duties are. I do whatever is in my power to make the world a better place. Here is the thing. I don't work because I get extra homework at my special school, and I have a long commute to the school in Chicago city proper terms because of all the stops on the Brown line, and the fact I walk a bit to and from the station, so I just don't work, but every night I walk the loop and I find a dollar on the ground, and there is always some homeless guy asking for money, so I always end up giving my dollar to them. Again, I know I have said this before, But when my mom is seeing other people happy, and by helping the homeless and giving my loose change to charity and good causes, it makes me so happy because I know I made a difference and made other people happy. The thing though is, I am not anywhere near as happy as I want to be, and because of, yes, my mother, but not because I feel like she has been neglecting me per se. It is because it breaks my heart to see her go through all this, and what makes it even worse is that I can't say anything to her about it, because if I say something to her about it, it will make her very angry at me. Here is the truth. About my parents, when it comes to helping me and my brothers, and the thing about this is, it really upsets all three of us. I am my brother's caretakers because of my mom's mobility issues. Since she has had issues with her arms, she has issues preparing things for us, so I have to do it for me and my younger brothers because I am the oldest, and there are some things I can do that my brothers can't. So I need to help them with that. The reason my dad won't help us is because he's more of a devoted husband to my mom than he is a father. However, even with all that said, my parents are still devoted parents because they take us to do fun activities in the United States, and at least my mom tries to help us whenever she can, and she does so with my dad on my mom's better days. And it is just it's just that my dad kind of has some difficulty noticing those cues sometimes. So my mom says something. My parents do still work. It is just that working has become exhausting for my mom, but she still works full-time and saves lives as a physician. She just heads to bed first thing when she gets home, and my dad still works as a comic book artist for the Chicago division of Marvel Comics. When it comes to how I am a caretaker for my brothers, I mostly prepare school lunches for them and get supplies that they can't reach from up high. Sim has begun to help me a little bit, but George is still too young unless I heavily supervise him to lift him up high so he can get something from up high himself. Meanwhile, back to us on being the royal family and the only inhabitants of the country of Robbinsog. Since my mom was the founder of the nation, she is the official monarch. My dad is just the king, and when I get to the throne, I will be the monarch, but for being born into the family, my wife will still be the queen, though. Here are the official rules of a royal family. The monarch, which is my mother, Queen Valerie, the ultimate rule maker and sets the rules for the nation. The spouse of the monarch, which is my dad, will also be referred to as the king or the queen. And he will make sure that the next in line is prepared to take over for when the time comes, and also make sure the monarch's rules are heavily executed and is the top advisor to the monarch, and takes over for the monarch only if death occurs. The next in line, which is me, Marcus, does whatever is possible to make the world a better place. The four-offs, which are my younger brothers, Sam and George, must do something in a royal position that says to them they can only be monarch if the next lines of or parts of the family abdicates or gets killed off, and the abdicatees or have no more power than the next in line. As being the next in line, I do whatever is in my power to the four-offs not to abuse it. I'm always willing to make compromises with Sam and George. If they need me to change conditions, I will provide that to them because I love them, and I can tell they want to be king badly, and they will be, and they never will be because that part of my family comes first. Sam specifically says he doesn't want me to abdicate for him if my parents abdicate before I have kids. George would want me to, but Sam's part of the family has to be taken out first so Sam gets in the way. When it comes to how we dress as royals, we only dress if we have visitors in Robbinsog. That is why when my parents, that is only when my parents wear their crowns and dress in the king or the queen costumes. Unless it's a holiday we celebrate in the United States with no religious meaning, since we are our own religion. Examples of those kind of holidays we we celebrate our Halloween and Thanksgiving. We do not celebrate Easter or Christmas or Ramadan because since those holidays are not a part of our religion. When my mom dresses as the queen, she dresses in a typical purple dress, nothing you wouldn't expect for a royal queen in a fairy tale, with her long dark black hair released normally and with her crown on. The crown is made of plastic, but if I told my mom that, she would be done with me, because the only thing I can't say is that this isn't real, and by saying that the crown is plastic is saying this isn't real. I am in absolute honesty, not sure if our kingdom and even our religion are real, or not, but if my parents say I can't say it, it isn't acceptable, so I assume that it is real for how the world is in my parents' rules. However, because of how he dresses royalty, my dad just dresses in a suit that includes a shirt, tie, jacket, hat, a fedora hat, and pants completely in blue. Where me and visitors in our country, we dress the same way because my brothers and all boys, but just with the clothes we can find, except we must always wear the necktie of our favorite color. Whenever we're outside and we're not in a pool where it involves water, we have to wear a cloak. We do have strict rules we need to follow as royals, and it does make me very sad sometimes that us, the only inhabitants of Robbinsog. The Robins, who are the royal family, but if we fall in love and convert more people to becoming royalists, we can expand our kingdom who are in line for the throne, and their lives as typical citizens, and not even know they're in line for the throne. However, back when it comes to me and the throne, I do have to be honest. When the time comes, I do not know what I want to do when I get there. There are some rules that my parents enacted that I want to change. I personally feel that the four-offs, or also known as my brothers, don't get as much power as I want them to. I also can't decide if I feel that my parents get too much power in our kingdom. I don't think they do have too much power, but because at least my parents do what we want sometimes. But again, my mom has enacted stricter rules about sensory issues ever since George popped out. They don't really make my life more difficult, because really it just makes my mother a happier queen, because she wants more of the things that she is sensitive to. But what makes her happy in such is cuddling. Basically, all she said is that all sensory demands must be met, but what she wants, that is handled by my dad and George.